And the first one that we're going to dive into is, what would you say is the most important part of a coaching session?
Do you want me to start with this one, Ashley?
Yeah, go for it. This is such a good question.
The most important part of a coaching session. So if you are a coach, you've been a coach in training with Coach Training EDU, you will hear us talk about that very important use of the time model. I'll refer to that in a minute. So for me, I would say it's setting the agenda. So setting the agenda in a coaching session, it's what allows you to add that framework to the session. So you're creating a framework right at the beginning. You are partnering with your coachee, with your client. I mean, I remember this I do a lot of consulting. I'm a trainer, I'm a mentor as well. We're always looking at how do we really set the stage at the beginning of a session. So setting the agenda, and if any of you know me and you've had assessments with me and we've chatted through this, think about how if you don't set an agenda, it's like you don't have a direction to go. The agenda setting piece is like your compass. One of our trainers, Andrew, talks about it being your navigation system. And if you don't have that agenda, you get lost. You don't really, the client doesn't know, the coachee hasn't had an opportunity to really think about what they want to get out of that session. And then for me, I'm going to go a bit step further, Ashley. I'm being a bit cheeky here, but the most important part of coaching as a whole in terms of the relationship is that designing the alliance. So for me, that is a pivotal piece of any partnership, any relationship that you have as a coach. And sometimes it's easy to shortcut that bit or do it too fast, or we might even forget to revisit it. But Ashley, you're a coach as well. What do you think about what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And the design the alliance, I think, can get overlooked really easily, because if we've had some kind of connection with a client previously or a potential client, we might think, oh, we already know. We know how to meet this client where they're at. But throw aside the assumptions, because I've been so surprised by some of my design the alliance calls with potential clients, and I might have some background on them. Maybe we've talked before about jumping into a coach client relationship or whatnot, and I think I'm always a little bit blown away, like, okay, that is something that I would have never guessed, or that is going to be incredibly helpful for our relationship, to make sure that I'm meeting you in this space to help you thrive in the best way possible. And you really miss that if you don't get to do that. And I would even encourage coaches, if you're coaching with another coach within the community or outside of our community, especially as a coach, for some reason, it's so easy for us to skip design the alliance, even in that situation. And I would encourage you to definitely do that with another coach as well. Even if you all know the lingo, you know the questions, it's really important to meet each coach and each client where they're at when you jump into a coaching session. So I agree with you, Raj. I think that's an excellent point. I would say that's really important.
What do you think, Ashley, is the impact if a design the alliance is missed or perhaps not done that robustly?
Yeah, I think there's a lot you can miss. I think, how you show up for a client might differ from one client to the next. So, when you've coached me, you've asked some just really awesome questions that like hit me to my core, and okay, I'm gonna respond to a little bit of a, what did you call it when we had that coaching session? I'm
trying to remember now. Was this in the design the alliance bit? Or was
no, this wasn't, but this was when we were in a coaching session after we'd done the design the alliance and everything. But I had told you in the design the alliance, like, I like it straight, bring it to me. Let's get right to it. I love the directness, and I love like questions that are going to really challenge me or make me think. And you had given me a word in one of our coaching sessions that I was like, oh, I don't know. But then it got me on this whole thing where I just was able to dive deeper. And I was thinking, it just made me think of that. Like, if we wouldn't have had that conversation, maybe that's still how it would have rolled in the coaching session, but you knew me in a way that like hit me to a core, where that question, if I ask that to one of my clients who I know it's harder for them to meet that space, it might shut them down, as opposed to bring something out of them. So that's kind of what I was thinking of. You missed the opportunity to really walk alongside. And I think that's the biggest thing in a coaching session. We're not leading from above or the experts or anything. So to get to know them in the Design the Alliance allows you to partner more effectively. What about you? What would you say?
Yeah, you've got me thinking around, like, one of the questions I do ask now in a Design the Alliance, and it might have been that, is I'll also ask, clients, coaches that I'm working with, what are your no-nos in a session? Like, what would you not like in a session? I've also incorporate some diversity and inclusion questions as well as part of the Design the Alliance. And we recently did an inclusion coaching program, and it's to really think about, where do you want to include those? Would they be in an intake form? And one of the things I like to do in that conversation, because we have to remember the Design the Alliance is one of the times when you are conversational, because you're not in coach mode yet, but you will be asking coaching questions, won't you? I like to check in on, how do you like to be referred to? Or, even checking in, am I saying your name correctly? What is important to you? Are there any diversity facets that I should be aware of? Often faith comes up. Sometimes I'm working with people, spirituality might come up. I work with people blessed all over the world. So sometimes there are cultural differences in how somebody might want to use strong language. Of course, we're not submitting those recordings to the ICF. But somebody might say, well, sometimes I drop an F-bomb, or I'm okay with using this, and really creating that partnership in terms of sharing each other's worldviews. And part of my brand for me is I don't have a problem with any of that, but it helps me to ebb and flow with where the person is at. It might be that we are bringing in those faith elements. It might be that they've shared something that's really important to them about background or sexuality or sexual orientation, or how they would like to be known, or what they're stepping into. So those are just some of the things really to help get deeper into that deeper level bit. I also, in Design the Alliance, especially with people who haven't worked with a coach before, is walk my coachees through what a coaching session is going to look like, so that they're prepared. Like, every time we meet Ashley, I'll say, we will check in on how you got on with actions, and we're going to set an agenda together. So to get the best out of our time, please think about what you would like to focus on when you come to the session. And I could go on, but I won't.
No, this is so good. Excellent points. One question that I have that I've heard coaches ask before is, and I know you kind of mentioned this, do you coach during the Design the Alliance? If not, how do you transition into that? How long is your Design the Alliance typically?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way I do it, and there's no right or wrong here, but this is just what I found has worked really well, is new client, say we have an hour together in the first session, I split it. So I will do 30 minutes on Design the Alliance and then 30 minutes on coaching. And I will say that straight up, very open and very transparent. Okay, first session, we've got an hour together, and we'll use the first part of it, if it sounds good to you, to design our alliance. And then the second part, let's do some coaching. And I actually say that as well when we're coming to the end of the Design the Alliance, because, as I say, I get an intake form that comes in from the client. We might have questions that are popped up from there. I invite the coachee to set goals as part of that. So we'll explore that, walk them through a coaching session. I talk about holding space and pause. And don't think I'm weird if it's quiet. If I'm quiet, it's part of the coaching process. We go into why direct communication. So, asking them, how would you like me to challenge you? How would you like me to use direct communication? But I also explain a bit, it's an important part of the coaching process, because I am here to support you to see those blocks, see those things that are getting in your way. And then once it's kind of worked out, naturally coming to an end, I give them an opportunity to ask me questions, because that's generally the only time if they're curious about me or my brand or what I'm bringing. And then once we wrap that up, I'll say, okay, are you ready? Should we transition into a coaching session? Everyone's clear what's happening and when.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so good. Okay, I'm going to move us to the next question, because I think we could talk about this for a really long time.
Yeah.
That's how important Design the Alliance is, coaches. It's taken up all of our time today.